All right, so brief. What do you think about the fonts look right? Is it possible? My God, Aaron, you're a genius. I'm serious. I don't know if we haven't all hung out before and chatted about this, but I have had font challenges many times, and this is going great. So, first off, I have a tremendous amount to get through today. This is a brand new presentation. I gave a version of this talk in Germany about 6-7 weeks ago, and I got this feedback scores. The scores, from the audience who write in last week, which is terrible. Terrible to get it last week. The scores were okay, they were good, like decent. It was like 4.2 out of 5, which, you could do worse, right? Like, that's not the worst thing in the world, but I was disappointed. Like, I was not thrilled with this, I was not happy, and so I spent the weekend redoing the entire presentation and then emailed Aaron on Tuesday morning, just before my flight, and said, oh, I have a brand new slide deck for you. You can find it here, bit.ly/SparkInfluence 2019. So I'm going to move very quickly, and there will be a ton of data and 102 slides in 41 minutes, 43 minutes. But you can find all of them, including the links and references to all of the studies, all of the data, including a bunch of cool stuff, new data that I got from JumpShot, the clickstream provider out of San Francisco, who has massive, incredible, impressive, high-quality data, and I'm very distrustful of data at scale anyway. So, all right. Does everyone remember what influencer marketing was like in 2012? Right? It was basically, if I said influencer marketing, you would know I meant discover all the sources of influence that affect your audience and do marketing of all kinds in those places. Which sounds really good. That sounds like smart, strategic, intelligent marketing. Anyone know what 2019 influencer marketing is? Correct. Pay half-naked people on Instagram to post with your products. I feel like we've regressed, like a little bit. I'm not totally sure. And fascinatingly, this is getting tons of attention. I don't care what marketing practice you type into Google Trends, influencer marketing is way bigger. Massively bigger, and that is mostly the last 2 or 3 years. It has essentially spiked incredibly. It is so huge that right now, it is the second most desirable career to high school students. I mean, it sounds like a good gig, although the posing half-naked part, I am not personally into. I don't know if you've seen this, but I did a push-up once. It was terrible. They're just, and it gets so much investment. Estimated somewhere between $10 and $20 billion next year. For reference, SEO is probably between 20 and 30. I think influencer marketing will be half the size of SEO. Don't get me wrong, I see a lot of half-naked people on Instagram, but I also do a lot of searching on Google, and I feel like the ROI is a little more provable there. I think it's data like this that creates the bias, right? Essentially that we look and we see, oh, lots of people use YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, therefore that's where I want to do my marketing. And so instead of thinking, where is my audience, we think, what's big? I don't think that's a rational way to think. I think the right way to think about this, the way that all of us in this room, as sophisticated digital marketers, would think about it is, where is my audience? And weirdly, that doesn't seem to be happening. So there's all these potential sources of influence, and yet, influencer marketing only gets done in those two? That strikes me as not entirely rational. Obviously, influence happens everywhere. That is what I want to talk about today, where to do influence marketing, right? There's this, so I asked JumpShot for a bunch of data about like, hey, are people still visiting the same number of domains and websites and pages that they were 5-6 years ago? Or has that really dropped off as a few apps have sort of cannibalized all our activity and behavior? The answer? Nope. Web browsing, still big. Still very big. Where do we do this? I think we should not do it everywhere. We should do it where our audiences engage. So let's talk about the shifts, the next era in web marketing, and where all of these things are going. We'll start with search. And I will pour myself a VP glass of water. That went terribly. That was unwise. Okay. In the future, I will ask one of you to pour me a glass of water. Sorry, Marion, got your pad. Okay. It'll dry in like the next 30 minutes. So you might have seen this article from Bloomberg last week, where Google basically announced their earnings report, right? And Bloomberg showed that for the first time in a number of years, Google's advertising revenue, not that it was down, but that the growth rate was down. Sort of odd thing, right? It's not just that you have to keep showing profitable growth, but your growth rate is supposed to increase. I want you to notice a total dick move from Bloomberg here. Do you see that? It starts at 16% and goes to 24%. That is how you make it look way worse than it actually is. If I were a Google investor, which I am not, I'd be a little miffed about that. I'm sure if I were an employee, I'd be super miffed too. But I think that should scare content creators, publishers, web marketers like us. Because Google is not getting the growth that it needs purely from people, right? More new searchers. Oh, I'm on camera and I like keep moving across the stage and you're just having to get up and it's infuriating. They go home and curse me. Sorry about that. But I'll try and stay relatively central. I'll move my water over here. Okay. It is not coming, at least in developed countries, right? Google's growth is not coming from more people doing more and more searches every day. They sort of plateaued on that. And so they have to extract growth other ways, right? And that sort of happens, right? That Google is getting better at solving searches for users, and we are getting better, I think, probably at searching as well. Voice search and mobile apps are cannibalizing queries, and of course, alternatives to Google are taking market share. I am going to cross out one of these in a minute here with some data. Anyone want to take a guess about which one I'm going to cross out? If you think it's number one, I'm going to cross out number one. Number two. Number three? Okay, all right, everybody. Well, those of you who voted think it will be number three. Let's find out if you're correct. Theory one, Google removing the need for multiple queries. I think they are doing this, definitely, right? I search for best movies on Netflix. How does Google make this happen? Where does this data come from? You can just yell. Us, yes, exactly. We do the work, Google gets the credit, and then what is their response when we're like, hey, you took my content? They're like, yeah, you're a sucker. Why did you do all that work for us? Thank you. No, thank you. Never mind. No, not thanking you. You thank us for the ability to be in there. And they do this through web result replacements, right? So you search for color picker, they built one so that you don't have to click anybody. You search for animal sounds, they built one so you don't have to click anybody. By the way, if you're ever in a car with children, they are upset, and they are not your children, which is frequent. I don't have children, so I'm frequently in the car with other people's children, and they're, I'm usually in the middle, because I have very narrow shoulders. So I put in the middle. There's 2 car seats on the other sides, and the kids are like, ah! I'm like, ooh, what sound does duck make? They all know. What sound does the platypus make? They have no idea, but Google knows. Let's play that for them. You can get like 30 good minutes from that. Because if you click this more link, they'll take you to a whole segment. There's a more down at the bottom, and they'll take you to a whole segment where they have hundreds of animal sounds. It's pretty amazing. They also do this through content scraping, right? That precludes a click-through. So on lots of health stuff, they've aggregated data from a bunch of places. Sometimes they take direct data from specific providers like the Mayo Clinic, right, and put it right in there. And they give their own properties, preferential treatments, like in flights and hotels and maps and images and videos, and that list keeps growing, right? So problematic. And of course, they're getting more telepathic, like they can read our intent, read our minds, and get right into our heads about what we're looking for. So if I search for the Trailblazers, they know that I don't just want the team website, I probably want the score of the last game that happened, 24 hours ago, whatever it was. If I search for a random number generator in R, they tell me now, be real careful, Rand, you don't want to accidentally watch this portion of the video or that portion, because the creator of the video might get some promotional value if you do. Instead, you should only watch these 106 seconds where you'll get exactly what you need and nothing more. Which is sort of handy as a consumer and really a dick move as a publisher. Right? Like for all of us, it's just, come on, can I get any value for creating things for you and your searchers, Google? And the answer is, for a little while. A little while, maybe. All right, theory number 2. Voice search and mobile apps are cannibalizing queries. First off, I want to be clear. I am a total skeptic that voice search is a trend, that it is something that should concern us. I think half the time when people say, watch out for voice search, you should be really worried, voice search is coming, so what? Like really, so what? Does it mean a huge difference in user behavior or searcher behavior or anything to do with us if someone inputs with their fingers or their voice? I don't think so. I think it's completely meaningless. I think the only thing that really matters is the answer. If the answer is delivered via voice versus the answer being delivered on a screen of results that you can choose from, that is a massive difference. Voice answers hugely meaningful. But all the stats are about voice search. Google has never released data about voice answers. Neither has Bing, neither has DuckDuckGo, neither has, the only folks who have is Amazon Alexa, and that was years ago when they were like, oh, look, we're providing all these millions of answers via Alexa device. I don't know if turn on my lights is a query though. So I have some skepticism there. The only thing we have in this sector is survey data right now. Although I have an email in my inbox from the CEO of JumpShot saying that he's promising to get the app data on the use of the Google search app, which might have some voice data inside there. If I get that and I can provide it to you, I will certainly write a blog post about that. All right, theory 3, alternatives to Google are taking market share away from them. Let's see. All right. Share of searches by month. Gosh. Google Images, and YouTube look pretty much the same. This is all in web browser. So when you see this yellow segment getting a little smaller, and the blue segment getting maybe a little smaller, that is, in our opinion, my opinion in JumpShot's, probably app data, app use, right? Use of the YouTube app instead of the mobile browser youtube.com/whatever. That seems to be the case, especially as YouTube has gotten installed on pretty much everything. So let's keep going down. Like we'll look underneath that. Searches under 2.5 billion. Yeah, it looks like Facebook grew a little bit in 2016, but then they plateaued, leveled off. Amazon, they're spiky around the holidays, probably some apps. Amazon's app cannibalizing that too. The only big growing property in browsers, DuckDuckGo. DuckDuckGo, the privacy-focused search engine from Philadelphia. Very impressive, but they are less than 0.5% of Google's size, so still a long way to go. Amazon, by the way, I know everyone talks about Amazon, they're way bigger than Google in whatever product search or something. They're about 1/30th the size of Google in terms of total searches that happen in web browsers, mobile and desktop. But there are terms and phrases that are more searched for on Amazon than in Google. What are they? Paper towels, toilet paper, let's see, iPhone charger is more on Google. A water bottle, external hard drive, Bluetooth headphones, generic goods where you don't really have a brand that you're looking for. Those are the ones that get searched on Amazon. You're a Prime customer, you go to Amazon and you're like, look, I don't really care about which brand I'm getting, I just want this thing. And Amazon does very well there. if you care about brand, right, you can see Adidas and, does that say Christ? Jesus is not big on Amazon. Jeff Bezos, like your presenter, Jewish. Wait, is that true? Is Jeff Bezos Jewish? I think he is, but I'm not sure. No? Maybe not. No. I'm sure I've seen it. I'm worried if I do a Google search that I will get information from not the most reputable sources on this topic. I don't know what it is. So Instagram, I of course asked about Instagram, and JumpShot did provide me with some data. This is desktop only and hashtag visits, but essentially Instagram is seeing growth in those pretty massively, but it's almost all happening in the mobile app, and so it's a little hard to tell. We should have some app data about that soon. I think Instagram is probably cannibalizing some Google search volume, but I think they're more discovery-based. I think like Amazon, they're a different beast entirely from Google search. So those two probably happening. Those of you who raised your hands, all correct. Number 3, probably not the case. So what's Google doing to grow ad revenue since it can't grow users? Well, lots and lots of these, lots more ads, and more kinds of ads. No surprise, right? And as a result, click-through rates are starting to look like this. So this says 2018, I apologize. This is not, this is 2019. This is March 2019 data, so this is only a few weeks old at this point. Here we go. Paid gets about 6.1% of all clicks. Organic, 65%. No-click searches, 34%. Mobile, flip the script a little bit. So I search for back pain medication here, right? And there you go. That is a very high number, paid 9.5%. Organic, 38.4%. No-click searches, almost 2 in 3. Almost 2 in 3 searches that are performed on your mobile device, Google answers without sending a click to anyone. Yikes. And that is growing. Growing. Desktop zero-click searches are up 12% the last 3 years. Mobile, a little more than 20%. Which, if you imagine 2021, 2022, every, 5 to 10 searches, there's 1 click for us? That's a little spooky, especially if search growth has largely plateaued. It's a spooky, spooky world. Google 2019. Move this. Not that I don't like this mouse cursor. Right? Answering queries in the search, sending out less traffic, biasing the visibility and clicks that they do have to their own, to paid properties, right? To paid results, and competing directly with all of us, with publishers. Sector by sector. When they find profitable places to compete, they go into it. So I think a reasonable question to ask is, what do we do? What do we do? Well, I think there's kind of 4 ways that I think smart search marketers have been playing this game. You can influence the searches directly with on-SERP SEO, essentially not trying to just rank, but to control what is seen in on Google's page of results, because you know that a lot of people will never leave that page. And so that is essentially your homepage, in a way, for your content. Second, focus on marketing that can grow branded search. This is the one that Google probably cannot take away from you, right? If you can grow brand, that is navigational in intent. And if someone searches Google for it, you get to own and control a lot of those results. Number 4, you can reprioritize your keyword targeting to bias to high click-through rate search terms. If traffic is what you need, go for the words and phrases that have high click-through rate. That means changing a little bit of how we do keyword research. And number 3, you can use Barticle SEO, right? Essentially, if you can't rank, or if you are struggling to rank, you can take the sites and pages that you know will rank and do SEO on that. So let's talk about these briefly. This is a search result for me. We'll meta, but that's okay. So basically, if you're trying to do this for your brand or your space or your topics and keywords, you can identify what are the sites that tend to rank well in my space, right, for all of my keywords. Aha, I can go build profiles and pages on net. Tons and tons of sites allow for this. You can claim this knowledge panel yourself or for your own brand, and then control what appears in there. Not everything, but a lot of things that appear in there. By the way, many times Wikipedia appears in there. I cannot recommend enough, especially if you are a human being as opposed to a brand, requesting Wikipedia to delete your page, which they will honor. You can request, unless you are like a president or politician, somebody super, super notable, you can request Wikipedia to delete your page. I did this years ago. I think it's the best thing I ever did because Wikipedia's editors, I do not trust them at all. And I don't think any of us should, right? Basically, you get a lot of harassment. This is much more true for women and people of color than it is for people who look like me, but there is a ton of harassment through Wikipedia editing, and you can bypass that by requesting that Wikipedia take down your page. For any of you who are thinking, gosh, I always wanted my own Wikipedia page. No, you don't. No, you don't. You want your own website that ranks well for your name. You do not want a bunch of random editors controlling your presence in Google's results in a way that you cannot impact and where you can't edit those changes, even if they're inaccurate a lot of the time. And you can leverage these rich snippets, right? With all the things that Google offers, there are many ways to control it. Second, all right, keywords that show aggregated answers like this, like the Netflix results that I showed earlier. To get into them, you basically have to get mentioned and listed in these. Not dissimilar from the work SEOs have classically done around link building, but you're not building links. You're just getting mentioned. Getting a mention much, much easier than getting a link. And it will influence whether you show up in that top panel. And then doubling down on branded search creation. If you're investing in content marketing campaigns and social media marketing campaigns, I urge you to do them in such a way that you will get branded demand. Other sites can rank, but you can't. Use particle SEO. Every single one of these sites for this particular query allows you to editorially contribute or to create user-generated content and get into them. It's pretty awesome. Right? This is the power of contributing to other sites. If you're doing SEO and you are targeting keywords, right? You're doing your keyword research and prioritizing what you're going to create, let me urge you to think down the long tail of search demand, where Google is much less likely to cannibalize and to put in rich results that will bypass the click. These metrics, so this is inside Moz's Keyword Explorer, but whatever tool you're using, SEMrush or Ahrefs or Conductor or what have you, you use the metric, that whatever metric they're providing that tells you the estimated click-through rate. That is the number you actually care about. That will tell you whether you can get traffic from this keyword rather than just are people searching for it. I think that's going to get more and more important as Google cannibalizes more and more of these clicks. Okay, social. Oh God. I mean, social, it's in some ways more depressing than the search world. Like the search world, there's still a ton of traffic being sent out. Google is still passing massive amounts of traffic out of their site, not much dissimilar than they were a few years ago. Social, is Facebook still sending any traffic out? Or are they, not really, right? And even the engagement rate for brands, excuse me. This is why I insist that people fist bump rather than handshake so you don't take diseases home to your children. For me, because I, unfortunately, okay, I am going to make the case, this might sound a little mad to you, but I'm going to make the case that 10,000 Instagram followers, maybe not 100,000, 10,000 Instagram followers are worth less than 100 email addresses. That is how low the engagement rates have fallen. So, Instagram, by the way, is the place with the highest engagement in the social media world, right? Averaging 1.73% of people who basically see your posts when you put them on Instagram, of your followers on average, your brand account. In Facebook, that's like 0.09%. 0.09%. My God, that's horrifying. Remember when we used to complain about Facebook dropping from 10% to 4%? Now we're like, what are you gonna do? All right, here we go. Average engagement for a social follower, 1.73 on Instagram, right? Email address, open rates are about 21% on average for across all of MailChimp's industries. This is MailChimp data, right? Can I retarget? On the network you can for social, but anywhere for an email address. Can I reach people on other platforms? Yep, you sure can with an email address. Can I get audience data? Only what the network provides and only for advertising purposes, or yes, a ton of data. Wait, can I potentially do direct outreach? Yes, yes you can if you have an email address, and very limited depending on the platform for social. Social traffic also still paltry, just nothing compared to search. So all those years where people were talking about, oh, you know, Facebook eclipsed Google in terms of sending traffic to publishers for clickbait stuff, sure, fine. If you were a clickbait provider in 2016, Facebook was semi-good to you. What have they done lately? Not much. Google, 10x what Facebook sends out in terms of referral traffic. I will say this though, social is growing a little bit, at least last year. Social grew a little bit in terms of the total traffic they referred out. That being said, it's still a small proportion, but that is mostly driven by two sites. One, Instagram growing massively and people using link in bio, and two, Pinterest, which you can see there. On the bad news side, Instagram has always prevented outlinking through the post itself, and now it looks like they are taking some action against people who use the link in bio. Some experiments, this one from Agora Pulse, showing that for posts that use the text link in bio or anything similar, they basically were seen by fewer people. Instagram prevented them from being seen. I'm sure you've seen this in YouTube, where if you put your URL in there, wherever you put your URL, they cut off the description so that no one can see it. Total dick move. I mean, on mobile, they just hide them entirely. They're like, why would you ever want to leave YouTube? Let us recommend this white nationalist video to you now. Yeah, it was, the great piece yesterday, I think, was in the Washingtonian about the poor mom whose like 13-year-old son got semi-radicalized by YouTube. Twitter and LinkedIn doing this same type of thing, fascinatingly, right? So on Twitter, if you put a link in your tweet, Twitter will intentionally show it to fewer people, right? They have it do less well, even if you have the same number of retweets, impressions, engagement, because Twitter wants to keep you on Twitter, right? If you go off somewhere else, you might not come back to Twitter. That's bad for them. LinkedIn, same story, which is why you see so many LinkedIn posts from, frankly, marketers like us, which then put the link to the piece of content as the first comment, which is like super annoying. And all of them, right, all of these sites are pushing content that engages over content that gets shared. So I did some personal digging in my own account and saw that essentially I was seeing this as well. The content that gets high retweets, that gets high likes, are not the ones that get lots of engagement. The ones that keep people on Twitter are the ones that get impressions, because Twitter wants to keep you on Twitter. LinkedIn wants to keep you on LinkedIn. Instagram, keep you on Instagram, right? And now Google wants to keep you on Google. I think this is natural. So what do? There are still great ways to get value from social, because it is a place that has high engagement. It's just changing the formula for what works, right? So first thing is we can play to these networks' bias for high engagement streaks. That's what they're looking for. Second, we can use social to build audiences who know and like and start to trust you. And third, we can drive the searches that we want, the branded searches and the clicks, through latent rather than active clicks. All right, so we know engagement streaks rule social, right? If I do really well, I get shown to more people. That's because these social algorithms are designed to engage, to addict, to retain. So not surprising at all that content that engages other social users is what these networks want to prioritize. You've all experienced this as well. This is from my Facebook public page analytics. So I have a post that does not too well, right? 1.7K, relatively low for my account reach. And when I have that, Facebook will take my next post and show it to fewer people, right? It will not perform as well. When I, on the other hand, have a high engagement post, Facebook is going to bias to show my next post to a much bigger audience, which is awesome. So, in this way, all of these social networks, which all function essentially the same, right? All the algorithms are designed to do the same thing. They all reward high engagement streaks. Basically, a series of posts that you have published that have performed well, earned high engagement, kept people on the site, made them use the network more. If you want to benefit from a system like this, like we're smart marketers, we know how to game this stuff. You do the high engagement, non-promotional, essentially content that will resonate emotionally and tell a story that engages your audience and that encourages amplification, right? Comments, likes, retweets, but more than any of those, comments is probably the big winner. That appears to be the one that drives the most, which I think is why so many of the threads and posts that do well on a lot of these places, Instagram in particular, are the ones that drive high comments. If I were looking at, is this Instagram account going to perform well, I would be looking at, did it get lots of comments? That's why you have comment spamming factories for Instagram now, because Instagram influencers basically have realized this and use that system to game it. Right? So I do a few of these in a row, then I do a promotion, I do a few more, right, to build back up. These ones earn the brand exposure that I want, right? Get me my new followers. Good. And these ones capitalize on the algorithmic reputation that I've earned, right, for high engagement, and they drive my direct traffic. So it's basically like build up, build up, build up, spend down, build up, build up, build up, spend down. Right? This system does still work pretty darn well. If you're trying to build brand familiarity, I cannot urge you enough not to search for it, because I went through, you can see all the links are purple, I clicked them all, I read all the pieces, none of them have any good advice whatsoever. It's very frustrating for me. But if you want to build up brand building activity, right? Activity that engages, you essentially, rather than driving direct, you're trying to use latent activity on your social posts. So here's CrowdCow. They work with ranchers who are sort of small ranchers, ethically raised meat and non-factory farming, that kind of thing. And then they sell it on the internet, ship it to your house. So they put up this beautiful ribeye, and there you go. D. Perry 321. Now I got to Google reverse sear. Yes, you do, sir. Yes, you do have to Google that. Official Sultan Fado, need to get some of your products. Okay, that's a pretty good idea too. I also like that. This is essentially what we're trying to drive toward with this latent activity. Like, I'm interesting people, I'm engaging them, not necessarily I'm direct selling or direct linking. My wife is in New York this week. In fact, today she's at the James Beard office picking up her award, and you can see, right, she's basically doing the same thing. Like sharing stuff that then inspires this notable person on Twitter. You were great, that piece brought me to your work, which made me buy your book. Perfect. That's what I'm looking for. Content and social designed to drive awareness, and then that awareness plus a quality product plus something people are interested in, driving people to conversion. Okay, let's talk about content world. So content worked very similarly for the last 15 years. Unlike social and even search, I think the content marketing formula was pretty similar. If we were at DigiMarcon a few years ago, I would almost certainly be talking about optimizing this particular process, which is the classic flywheel, right? So I start down here, I do some keyword research, I have some industry intuition about what's going to work, I publish that content, I push it to my email and RSS subscribers, I promote it on social, I drive links and amplification, I grow, right? All these channels, hopefully, because more people see it, and then more people subscribe to me and sign up. I grow my brand authority, and recognition. I earn search and referral traffic. Now I can rank higher and get more traffic. I promise you, it looks even better with the fonts on the online version. Don't get me wrong. Like, take the picture. I can be in the picture. That's now a worse photo. I appreciate that none of you brought out your phones for that. That was really kind. It's awesome to make sure that that doesn't show up on the hashtag, right? But in 2019, there's all these forces working against this content marketing flywheel model, right? The search engines, the social networks are essentially rewarding only the biggest winner take all, and oftentimes that's them themselves, right? The demand that they have for monetization growth means that they are becoming our competitors, brands' competitors, publishers' competitors. The amplifiers, the people who could help us reach bigger audiences, are so overwhelmed by requests from marketers like us that their attention is harder to capture than ever before, and they're more skeptical. And the traffic that we get correlates less with conversions than it has historically, probably because people are so overwhelmed from web marketing efforts. So what are we going to do? Boy, I'm having water. Sorry. First off, I'm going to suggest that you try and find, if you want your content to work well, you find the intersection of these two things. I'll talk about that in a second. You should probably be building content like a product, right? That is delivering unique value with a competitive advantage to an audience who's already hungry for that thing. Rather than, my least favorite thing in the content marketing world is when someone says, you've got to build good content, or make great content, or make better content. What does that mean? That means nothing. You just said blah, 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 blah. It is non-actionable, non-useful advice. Like, okay, I'll just make my thing better, and that's going to work? No, that doesn't, I find that meaningless. Okay, rant over. And third, generally speaking, content that drives people to subscribe, that drives them to sign up for more of your content, tends to work better than content that tries to convert directly. Which I know sounds a little odd, but I'll show you some examples of this. All right, so successful content tends to do not this. And yet, almost everyone in content marketing, thankfully, which is why we have a competitive advantage and we don't do it, tends to write content that is this. Go create content that our customers care about. It doesn't work very well. Why not? Because it doesn't earn amplification. It doesn't incentivize sharing. It is just, oh, my customer wanted to know that. I'm working with a plumbing contractor. Well, great. We showed you what's likely blocking up your drain. Who cares? The only person who cares is the customer, and they are not going to share or amplify that. Instead, what you are looking for is the overlap of these two things, or even just doing the one in the red circle. Content that hits what influential publications and people that your customers listen to care about, because that is who can amplify content. This is the content with high potential reach. This is almost always the content you see perform best. I don't know if this is still the case, but as of last year, the most visited, most viral, most engaging piece the New York Times had ever published was this. Has anyone taken this quiz? How y'all use and you guys talk? A few of you are nodding your head. This quiz, I find it amazing because I took it with my grandparents last year, sitting around their dining room table in New Jersey, and I'm like, okay, I didn't have them do the quiz themselves. They're okay at using computers, but they're in their 90s, like it's pushing it. But I asked my grandfather, okay, Papa, what do you call it when rain falls while the sun is shining? And my grandfather comes down. The devil is beating his wife. What? Yes, because apparently if you were born in Brooklyn in the 20s, that is what you call it when the sun is shining and it's raining. I was like, Papa, we call it rain showers, or sun showers. And he's like, weird, okay. Yes, I'm weird. perfectly normal. Anyway, but this, so then it geographically marks you and it says like what sort of age and where you were and where it thinks you grew up. Awesome, super fun. And if you do it, what's the next thing you have to do? Oh, I gotta see where my friends, my family members, my parents, my grandparents, like I gotta see how this is gonna nail it, right? It creates a natural viral loop. So of course, it did extraordinarily well from the New York Times. If you're not a logged in subscriber, as of a few months ago, by the way, they now ask you to sign in or create an account to do this, because I think they recognize driving content to email, super smart for their subscription model. You want to think about this as a product, right? So this is an interactive piece from Typeform. I urge you to check it out. It's really fun to play with. It shows you how conversational AI systems basically work and can operate. This is essentially a chatbot as a content piece. And it sort of gives you a view into Typeform's survey system of competitive advantage, which essentially their whole survey model is just, we get you higher engagement than SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. And they're right, it works. Like, you send someone a Typeform with the same questions, you will generally get more responses per person, which is why I've used it for SparkToro. Right? Okay, so this is from Nicholas Thompson, the editor-in-chief at Wired, in a piece that just came out last week, talking about essentially what works best for them driving subscribers. And he's talking about driving people to their email because once they have an email address, those people eventually convert at very high rates. And getting an email conversion is so much easier than getting a credit card. Makes total sense. I have seen the same thing in software as a service. I have seen the same thing in publishing. I have seen the same thing in services businesses, in lead gen. Essentially that if your content drives people to an email subscription first, you can get very high open rates, click-through rates, conversion rates eventually, versus the conversion rates you can get. So a lot of people think that it works like this, right? Either we can try and convert people to an email subscriber, and maybe we'll get 2% of them, and then maybe we'll get 10% of those to a conversion, or we can just drive it direct. Like, why don't we just drive it direct right now to a conversion? This is wrong. This is the wrong way to think about this. The way it actually works is that these are additive. You can do both. And you can choose how to prioritize one over the other, and this can keep driving these long term. All right, last one before we wrap up. Let's talk about ads. So, bad news, so is bad news. Bad news is, there's a number of bad news here, but bad news is late adopters. A lot of the old money, like big corporations and most conservative players in the digital and marketing world have entered, over the last 3 or 4 years, have entered the digital marketing space. They're also responsible for a ton of the growth that's now going into digital advertising marketing. And they are used to spending a ton of money and having not a ton of insight into how that advertising performs. They also have excellent margins because usually they play in these less competitive spaces and monopolies. They have built-in historic advantages, et cetera. And they're not alone. Venture dollars and institutional money of all kinds are flooding these ad markets, and those investment dollars don't care about profits, just growth, right? How many of you are at venture-backed companies? I raised like 29 million, so I feel your pain. This was for Moz, not for SparkToro. But, right, so in the venture model, if you're like, hey, we're profitable, they're like, what the hell are you doing? What's wrong with you? Stop that. You're killing me. Go spend money to find growth. That is your obligation. We are, right, if you look at Uber, right, or Lyft, right, like the proposition is lose money and lots of it. That is what we want because we want you to grow and dominate this industry. That's sort of the model behind it. But that means that ad bids in a ton of these sectors, both from the competitive side and from the venture and institutional investor side, go way above what's profitable. For those of us who are not in those fields, don't have those dollars to spend, we are still forced to compete with these folks, right? The ad costs go up, the ROI goes down. In many cases, it's above what break even is. That is super tough. Not only that, ad tracking is getting way harder. Mike King, who runs iPullRank here in New York, excellent technical SEO agency and creative, and he wrote this wonderful post sort of explaining why Apple's changes and Google's changes, as well as the European regulations, are sort of combining to get rid of what we have been historically able to do. 90-day, 120-day, 30-day windows of being able to track people's behavior across not necessarily devices, but across logins and in our analytics and advertising to see whether someone eventually converted. And that is fading. Right? He says retargeting beyond 7 days is dying. He says it's dead. It's not quite dead, but it is dying, and I fully agree and expect that in the next couple of years it will be entirely gone. I think that's going to be truly painful for advertisers who don't have a very fast conversion path. Influencer marketing, by the way, not easier to track by any means, right? Not at all, apart from link in bio. And accountability in that field is a massive issue. This is from a large influencer in Europe. I do campaigns for brands on a weekly basis. Less than half ever come back for metrics. What? Less than 50% ever want to know what's happened. I'm sorry, when was it that the marketing world got a bunch of people who said, hey, how much money did we spend on that campaign? A few $100,000. Did we get any value from it? No, wait, don't answer. I don't care. Can I work with you? That sounds awesome. I mean, maybe for a short while. But that's madness. And yet, this is the reality in a ton of these campaigns. They don't even come back for the metrics. It's not even like the, hey, show me your Instagram analytics from it. What? Why not? All right, what do we do? First, I think we should think about organic and brand growth before generally we do advertising. If startups, early stage companies that don't have a big audience come to you and they want to succeed in digital advertising, tell them, hang on, before we spend money acquiring people, let's have them come and get to know us first. So, I'm scrolling through my Instagram feed and I see this ad from Green Chef. I'm not familiar with Green Chef. I have no idea how much their product costs. I don't know if it's a good product. I have no idea if $40 off is a lot or a little. I'm not going to click that. I'm just going to click that. The only people who are going to click that are probably people who know what Green Chef's pricing is already like and have some idea of what their food does, or they're like really into it and desperate for bowls right then. When I search for prepared meal deliveries, same kind of story in search, right? I only recognize one company on there. Personally, I only recognize one company on here, Caviar. We used them when I worked at Moz. They did food delivery for the company, so I'm like, oh, okay, I know them. I don't know Balance.Bistro MD or HelloFresh or Gobble. I think two of those are now out of business, unfortunately. This presentation is only a week old. That's a joke. If someone here is from one of those companies, don't shoot, yeah. Right, so if you're not yet known, liked, and trusted, the ROI sucks because the click-through rate sucks. This is a graphic from WordStream, and I think it does a nice job explaining what we all know, but so few people who are outside of the digital advertising space understand, which is essentially, if you are the advertiser who is paying the most money, you are probably the one who is shown the least. You are probably the one with the lowest performing metrics. You get the fewest clicks, you pay the most money per click, and Google, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Reddit, Twitter, they don't want to show you. The display networks don't want to show you because you are not engaging to visitors. They are happy to charge the least per click, per visit, per impression, to the advertiser with the highest quality score, whatever that quality score is. You're known and loved, welcome to Profitville. New to a market, you pay, you don't get much traction. So what do you do about that? I think that's super tough. And if you are doing advertising or campaigns that are focused on brand, that are focused on awareness, you can track it. Many people think this is untrackable stuff and they don't look for the metrics. That is not true. Even if you're having a very hard time in your own analytics tracking it down, every campaign I have ever seen focused on brand results in more people Googling your name. When you have that happen, if it happens in enough quantity, you can see it in Google Trends day by day. You can know exactly the day we launched a brand campaign. How did it impact, relatively speaking, our branded Google search through Google Trends? Which is super nice. Pretty awesome. All right. Traditional influencer marketing, right, we know does this thing that does not make sense, right? I don't think it makes any sense. It essentially looks for one of these, the most followed accounts that match a keyword search, or the most reachable accounts that match a keyword search. And that's not really what we want, right? Like what we're looking for is, I don't want, oh, this user has the most followers in their field. I want this account is followed by the highest percent of people that I want to reach. That's what I really want. It's just very hard to get at. Very, very hard to get at right now. The two ways that most companies who do this well do it, and agencies as well, are surveys and interviews. That's not very scalable. It is hard work. It takes a long time. But my God, is it worth it. Now, okay, I'm going to show you a screenshot of SparkToro, which is what I want to build. It does not exist. I have no product to sell you, but this is my imagination. This is what I want to build, right? So, oh, my audience frequently talks about Italian food. Cool. Here's places where all these accounts talking about Italian food pay attention, right? That's what I want, followed by percent of people who are talking about the thing that I care about, the audience that I want to reach. Scroll down a little bit and oh look, there's a small following here, but it's exactly the audience I want to reach, and the advertising ROI is probably high, and the targeting is the targeting is very high, and the advertising is very cheap, right? I mean, this is a much easier target to reach. That is what you're looking for when you do those surveys and those interviews. You want to win in digital advertising in 2019, you basically go and interview or survey or use profile data to find where your audience engages and with whom and with what. You earn brand exposure through organic, through social, through content, through SEO. You try and get one organic visit or a follow or an engagement, and then you advertise in places where people engage to those who already follow you. That will give you the highest ROI for the lowest cost per acquisition. I think we can evolve a lot of the ways we create influence for the future by following strategies like these instead of some of these older systems that are stopping, that are ceasing. Thank you very much. You can find the slides right there. Appreciate that.